Do you ever feel bombarded by logos left, right, and center? Everywhere you look, companies are constantly fighting for your attention, and they do this by creating interesting idents that you immediately associate with their products. At first glance, most of these are just fun or colorful emblems. But when you look a little deeper, some of them reveal creatively hidden features that you probably never noticed before. So grab your glasses, because it's time to take a good look at the hidden meanings behind the logos you see every day. Domino's Domination. I bet that just by looking at the iconic Domino's pizza logo, many of you started salivating at your screens. But when you think about it, what does a classic game of dominoes have to do with pizza? Well, it turns out it doesn't. Back in the 1960s, Dominick's Pizza Restaurant had to be renamed following a buyout by American entrepreneur Tom Monaghan. But he wasn't allowed to use the existing name. And at the time, he didn't have the money to hire million-dollar marketing experts. So he began asking his employees for suggestions. That's when a pizza delivery boy threw the name Domino's out there, and Monaghan liked it. It was similar to the old name, it was easy to remember, and Monaghan had an excellent idea for the future logo. The square shape on both sides of a domino looked like pizza boxes, and the 3 dots would represent the first 3 Domino's restaurants to open. The original plan was to add a new dot every time a new outlet opened, but the business started to grow so quickly that they soon left that idea behind. And thank God they didn't go through with it. Otherwise, that super simple logo would be made up of around 17,200 separate dots today. Netflix is on a roll. Netflix wasn't always the streaming powerhouse we know and, thanks to the pandemic, rely on today. It started out back in 1997 as a DVD rental company, nearly 10 years before the first iPhone was invented. Back then, its logo was an old-school film reel separating the words net and flicks, making it pretty clear that this was some kind of internet-based film ordering service. But as technology began to change, Netflix shifted their focus from DVD delivery to online streaming. Their logos began to change with the times, and seeing as streaming itself has no universally identifiable icon, Netflix just let its name do all the talking. Obviously, this bold branding worked, as they're now the largest streaming service in the world with over 203 million subscribers worldwide. But it's clear they haven't forgotten their origins, thanks to something incredibly subtle they included in their 2014 logo updates. While they're big enough to be identified by the single red letter N, there's more to this letter than meets the eye. The 2 duller red lines crossed with a brighter red line resembles a ringlet of old film reel. A lot like the one their old purple and black logo started out with. I guess you could say that despite all their success, Netflix are keeping it real. The Twitch glitch. Live streaming has become one of the most popular forms of online entertainment today. But the king of all these streaming services is the one and only Twitch. In January 2021, nearly 2 billion hours of content were watched on its platform, where streamers broadcast everything from video games to real-time chats with their virtual audience. But as well known as it is today, not many people know where that little purple mascot thing comes from, or even what it is. To figure this out, let's rewind 10 years to when Twitch, then known as Twitch TV, was first launched. Back then, it was marketed as the world's largest competitive video gaming network, found exclusively on the URL twitch.tv. Its logo was gray with a rock bandish type font, designed to resonate with old-school gamers. But as esports and gaming became more and more popular around the world, Twitch began to thrive. By 2012, they had a whopping 20 million visitors a month. It was so large that the TV part of their name had become redundant, and so they renamed the service, quite simply, to Twitch. They updated their logo to a custom typeface that was reminiscent of a retro gaming aesthetic, but they also added in this icon, which has its own name. It's called Glitch, and it's the company's shorthand way of saying Twitch. The shape is an upgrade of the old TV emblem, which you can see now incorporates the tail of a new age chatbox icon. Chatboxes are features that allow the audience to interact directly with the streamers, which is a huge part of Twitch's appeal. This emblem evolution was a huge hit with Twitch's user base, so much so that fans even began getting tattoos of the glitch. Then, in 2014, Twitch was snapped up by Amazon for a staggering $970 million. But the iconic logos have only undergone a few small tweaks to their colors and design. Clearly, Amazon knows that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The smart Sony VAIO. When you think about some of the product placement in the James Bond film franchise, most people remember the logos of fancy cars, expensive watches, and premium vodka. Shaken, not stirred, obviously. Although, there's one in 2006's Casino Royale that looks a little out of place. The Sony VAIO laptop is used in plenty of shots of Bond plotting some serious espionage, hacking into things, and replying to some very important emails. But its name and logo look so cryptic that I reckon even Bond would have a hard time cracking this code. Thankfully, its designer, Teiyu Goto, offered up this information freely. VAIO originally stood for Video Audio Integrated Operation, which, seeing as VAIOs were first created as desktop computers back in 1996, is a reference to their original design. And the logo, subtly and cleverly, represents this as well. The V and A portion of that insignia is made up of an analog audio sine wave, and the I and O represent the ones and zeros of video's digital binary code. Side by side, this reflected the incorporation of the two computing technologies within a single device, and it still looks as stylish today as it did 25 years ago. The logo, that is, not the old mechanized cinder block. Phenomenal Tour de France. You don't have to be a fan of cycling to know that the Tour de France is the most prestigious cycling tournament in the world. Racing 2,000 miles over the idyllic French countryside in just 23 days is a challenge that attracts the very best cyclists from around the world. But they also come thanks to the event's impeccable marketing. The Tour de France's logo used to be a very austere-looking icon, incorporating block letters surrounded by the dials of a speedometer. Very official and competitive, wouldn't you say? Well, this all changed in 2003 to celebrate the race's 100th anniversary. The whimsical font and colorful circle gave the entire logo a more Gaelic feel, but a smartly subtle detail was also worked into the mix. See those two little dots? Well, if you take away this portion of the wording, the letters are arced specifically towards that yellow circle to look like a cyclist pedaling for his life. Anyone else feel like they've been blind all these years? Sacre bleu. The secret of Starbucks. If you've never seen the Starbucks logo before, what would you think it sold? With that great green and white siren holding two fishtails, you'd be forgiven for thinking they sold seafood. After all, mermaid princesses and coffee aren't exactly the most classic combination. But there's much more to this coffee franchise's logo than meets the eye. When it was established back in the 1970s, the coffee houses of the time didn't serve the artisanal blends of beans we're used to today. Fortunately, Seattle-based duo Terry Heckler and Gordon Boker quickly spotted this gap in the market. They planned to set up a high-quality coffee bean and roasting equipment store, but they first needed a strong name. Both gentlemen, who worked in advertising, believed that words beginning with ST were powerful. At first, their brainstorming brought them to the unlikely name of Starbo. They were close to settling on it when, by a stroke of luck, they remembered that a character in one of the world's most famous books, Moby Dick, was called Mr. Starbuck. Now that they had a name, all they needed was a logo. In keeping with the theme of seafaring adventure novel, they began looking for images of mermaids. They were eventually inspired by a twin-tailed siren from the 15th century, and with a little editing, she became the original face of the Starbucks brand. Over the years, and as the company thrived, the logo has been consistently modernized and simplified. By 2011, the gorgeous green mermaid has become so iconic that Starbucks removed its brand name from the logo altogether. Well, it may not seem like the most obvious logo choice at first glance, but seeing how successful Starbucks has become, it was clearly a match made in heaven. Pizza Hut's past. Did you ever go to Pizza Hut as a kid, or at least before the rise of the pizza delivery era? These restaurants served pizzas, side salads, and desserts all under one roof. But to many people, the Pizza Hut logo itself is something of a mystery. I mean, what exactly does a sombrero and a red circle have to do with pizza? From Indiana to Kuala Lumpur, this hat-shaped logo sits faithfully beside the Pizza Hut name, with no context whatsoever. So, where does it come from? Well, back in 1969, a little over 10 years since Pizza Hut opened their first store in Wichita, Kansas, this fast food chain was beginning to branch out internationally. Afraid that competitors could easily overtake them, Pizza Hut's owners decided to add bright red, uniquely shaped roofs to the tops of each of their franchises. Not only did this help them stand out, but the red roof feature soon became Pizza Hut's calling card, and they incorporated it into their logo redesign in 1974. Even though a shift in modern architecture has seen many franchises lose their iconic red roofs, Pizza Hut's logo still includes the classic red callback. I guess that's one way to raise the roof. Space Force. At the beginning of 2020, President Trump did what he did best and took to Twitter to unveil the logo of the United States' brand new military division, Space Force. At first glance, it seemed very official looking, as it used the service-sealed design of the 5 other divisions of the United States Department of Defense. But it didn't take long for people to point out that it looked suspiciously like the Starfleet logo from the famous sci-fi series Star Trek. And by people, I mean nerds, myself included. I mean, it was almost identical. The arrowhead of the triangle, the circle of the globe, the little comet orbiting the center. Even the stars were placed similarly. It was like it had been designed in a mirror universe, or a copycat universe at least. However, analyst and former National Security Policy Advisor John Noonan defended the design by comparing it to the US's existing Air Force Command logo. It turns out the triangle shape in the middle, also known as a delta, has been used in armed force emblems since the 1940s, like this one from the 36th Operation Group of the United States Air Force. So there is some hidden history behind the design. But while the world was focused on the delta, not many noticed that the seal also included star clusters that are identical to those found in the NASA logo. I mean, there are over 9,000 visible stars in the night sky. Was looking up really that hard for these designers? PRICEY Pepsi. The Pepsi logo has become so iconic that during the 2018 Winter Olympics opening ceremony, some people thought the red and blue South Korean flag was a giant Pepsi logo. The carbonated cola drink was originally called Brad's Drink when it was first made back in 1884. But it was eventually renamed Pepsi Cola because it contained pepsin, a kind of digestive enzyme, and cola nuts. That's right, Pepsi used to be a kind of nut drink. You'll learn something new every day. To stand out from its long-term rival Coca-Cola and show support for America during World War II, Pepsi introduced this incredibly patriotic logo design. It featured the red, white, and blue of the waving United States' flag, all cleverly encapsulated in a bottle cap. As you can imagine, this made it a huge hit with the American market. While those 3 core colors haven't changed, the logo's undergone 11 different design changes to modernize and simplify its shape. But, surprisingly, all that simplicity didn't come cheap. In their 2008 update, they spent a staggering $1 million researching and designing the exact intersection of the waves to incorporate a bunch of super scientific elements, like the angles of the golden ratio, the proportions of the Mona Lisa's smile, and perceived future trajectories. The designers even discussed Pepsi's relation to the speed of light. You just can't make this stuff up. Clearly, a lot of work went into it. But do you think this end result was really worth $1 million? Let me know down in the comments. The humble Hershey's Kiss. I don't doubt that Hershey's Kisses are the only kisses many people received this Valentine's Day. Lord knows I'm one of them. Thanks, global pandemic. But for those who've never heard of these sweet treats, they're one of the most popular candies available in the US and have been manufactured for over 100 years. Their logo started off with some classic old-timey font and was gradually modernized over the decades. But in 2003, their little logo update included a tactfully hidden image. Can you see it? What if I turned it round like this? Can you see it now? Just tucked in between the K and the I of the lettering is some negative space that forms a perfect bell-shaped Hershey's Kiss. Whoever designed that font certainly earned a kiss or two when they came up with this idea. While it seems obvious now, it took many people years to notice this adorable little detail. And by many people, I mean me. Tell me I'm not alone in this. Did you notice it as well? Let me know in the comments. The Disney Deception. We all know this classic curling signature that appears in the ident at the beginning of many of our favorite childhood films. It belongs to Walt Disney, the internationally renowned animator, voice actor, and film producer. He and his company, simply named the Walt Disney Company, are responsible for the pioneering leaps and bounds taken by the animation and cartoon industry back in the mid-1900s. Even today, the iconic curl of Disney's signature at the beginning of a movie lets audiences know that they're in for a family-friendly treat. But anyone who's a big Disney fan might want to sit down for what I'm about to reveal. Are you ready? That signature is a fake. A copy of his old passport reveals that Walt Disney's signature actually looked like this. The Disney company used a stylized version of Walt's signature designed by an animator, because Walt apparently didn't actually like the way his real signature looked. It just wasn't magical enough. And rumor has it that he couldn't even reproduce it. Ooh, that hit me right in the nostalgia. The Denim Dynasty. Jeans all look the same, but there's one brand that really stands out from the crowd thanks to a little red label. You guessed it, I'm talking about Levi's. But the red tab isn't the only distinguishing feature that some Levi jeans sport. On the back pocket of their trademark 501 jeans are two stitched arches that meet in the middle. This pattern is affectionately called the Batwing. But while it looks pretty perched on someone's derriere, it also has a little history behind it as well. You see, Levi Strauss & Company were established all the way back in 1873 after patenting a pocket fastening design. The company began branding its jeans with the iconic two-horse patch, which, as you can see, included that very early Batwing design. Over the years, the success of the company saw the Batwing incorporated not only in the jeans themselves, but also as a part of the logo. The company's 1969 rebranding saw the Batwing included at the bottom of the brand's famous red emblem. And though the logo has been tweaked over the years, the Batwing remains the same. Personally, I find this incredible, because for all these years, I thought those two curves were meant to represent a denim-clad butt. Tasty Toblerone. Toblerone is a uniquely shaped Swiss chocolate bar made up of triangles of snappable chocolate combined with delicious nuggets of nougat. The inspiration for its delectable design and lovely logo comes pretty clearly from the famous Swiss mountain, the Matterhorn. But there's a secret hiding in the shadow of this mountain, literally. Brace yourselves, because once I reveal it, you'll never be able to unsee it. Right there, hidden in all the negative space, is a bear standing on its hind legs. But what has a bear got to do with chocolate? Well, it's actually a reference to the birthplace of this triangular treat, which is the city of Bern, Switzerland. The city has an angry-looking black bear prowling across its coat of arms. Although Toblerone's white bear isn't nearly as scary looking. Not only that, but the name Toblerone itself, which is a combination of Tobler, the creator's family name, and Torrone, the Italian nougat, contains all the letters of Bern. just how much sweeter could this marketing treat be? Sick beats. Simplicity is a make-or-break factor with many logos. I mean, just think of Nike's trademark tick in contrast to this, unfortunate-looking Doughboy's badge. Fortunately for Beats Electronics, the simplicity of both their name and logo has helped make them a super successful brand. Set up by music industry legends Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, the lowercase b on a red circular background has become synonymous with their premium audio products. But for all its simplicity, there's some serious genius in its design, because if you take a step back, it also looks like someone wearing headphones from the side. For a company that sells premium headphones and audio gear primarily to musicians, that's insanely clever. And seeing as Beats was bought by Apple back in 2014 to the tune of $3 billion, it's pretty clear that they, ironically, can't be beat. Battle of the Apps. When Musical.ly popped up on the App Store back in 2014, teens all over the world hit the download button and began recording themselves lip-syncing to their favorite songs. It was a certified hit. But less than 2 years later, a lip-sync competitor waltzed onto the app scene under the name of A.me. Its name didn't really tell users what it was, and its logo was a shady-looking pink musical note. Needless to say, it didn't pose a threat to Musical.ly's reign. That was until December 2016, when A.me changed its name to Douyin, and its logo suddenly transformed into something you might recognize. That's right, A.me had in fact been TikTok's very first evolution. The new and now iconic logo was designed to emulate the feeling of being in a large crowd looking up at a bright stage, and the colorful overlays came from running the design through an electronic wave effect, which gave it a standout 3D appearance from other apps. With this new look, Douyin quickly began to thrive, and within a year it had more than 100 million users. While Douyin focused on the Chinese market, its parent company, ByteDance, developed and launched its twin TikTok to the international market under the same branding. Then, in 2017, ByteDance bought Musical.ly for $800 million and merged it with TikTok to create one unstoppable lip-syncing application. But looking back at this, something feels seriously off about this now infamous logo. Sure, it's based on A.me's original musical note, but compared to Musical.ly's logo, don't those white lines and curves have a very similar feel to them? Not only that, but if you compare it to the previously mentioned Beats logo and flip it around, don't they look suspiciously similar? Could it be that TikTok's logo shape was based on successful brands to get a foothold in the musical market? While this is all pure speculation, I want to hear what you think. Is this just artistic license at work, or have TikTok taken these designs for themselves? Let me know down in the comments. The Toyota Enigma. The three interlocking ovals of the Toyota Motor Corporation is one of the most recognizable automobile-related logos in the world. But as simple as it looks, there's a lot going on within it. You see, the company itself was founded by Kiichiro Toyoda back in 1937 as a spin-off from his father's company, Toyoda. You heard that right, Toyoda, not Toyota. Kiichiro adjusted the company's name to Toyota because it sounded better and could be written in Japanese in 8 strokes of a pen. 8 is considered to be a lucky number in Asian culture, as it's associated with prosperity and wealth. And clearly for Toyota, 8 really was their lucky number. The company took the world by storm, and in 1989, to celebrate their 50th anniversary, they unveiled their new oval logo. It symbolized the overlapping trust of the customer and the company, and the horizontal layout made sure it could be recognized even when looking back at it in a rearview mirror. That's pretty clever. But there's something even more impressive hiding inside all those ovals. When you break it down, each overlap ingeniously spells out every letter in Toyota's name. Not only that, but at a glance, it also looks like it contains that oh-so-important number 8. Now that's a stroke of genius and luck. Hidden in Hyundai. Like their Toyota counterparts, the Hyundai Motor Company is also one of the most infamous names in the automobile market. Although it didn't always sport that iconic italicized H as its logo. The South Korean company was formed in 1967 and decided to enter the market with this as its official emblem. For the 1960s, this was quite a modern monogram that was clearly geared towards English-speaking markets, especially when you compare it to Toyota's. Although the black color scheme and unaerodynamic shape didn't exactly yell cars as much as it yelled tense. In 1978, this was changed to an equally blocky HD symbol, so it wouldn't be confused with rival motor company Honda. Then, in 1990, just 1 year after Toyota introduced its game-changing logo design, Hyundai slid in with its own updated and modernized emblem. But the italic H wasn't just a simple yet futuristic letter. It was also designed as a stylized picture. According to Hyundai, the iconic H depicts a customer and a salesman shaking hands, a gesture that sees them exchanging both trust and satisfaction. After seeing that, I think the satisfaction is all mine. Which of these hidden designs are you never going to be able to unsee ever again? And do you know of any other logos with hidden meanings? Let me know in the comments below, and who knows, they might make it into another video. Thanks for watching.